In the last video, we demoed how to create a palette if we already have like the main primary or maybe even secondary color choices selected for us. Now, in the rare occasions, if you're going to be the one who's deciding what the actual shade is without any kind of brilliant guide or anything, some go-to strategies are always connected to color psychology, but it's also coming down to like a personal taste and preference. So there's not like a really strict method that I can recommend to you. You can take inspiration from anywhere. You can look at different competitors in the field trying to create something similar or actually like really opposite from them so it stands out in the industry. Or you could look at nature and like other places or areas that inspire you and kind of give you the same feeling, or you can kind of try to think of an emotion that's connected to that industry or something, and kind of bring that and try to pinpoint what color would work really well for it. So I want to, since we had like the neon example in the last video, in this one I just want to start off with something that's going to be like the opposite, so like something very minimalist and pastel like. And so the prompt that I want to use for this demo video is creating a color palette, UI color palette with all of the necessary tints and shades and tones for like maybe an app that's connected to nature, or like maybe documenting your plants or something. So you know how people usually like to, in this day and age, like refer to their plants as even pets. And the minimal aesthetic that's sometimes associated with those areas of apartments or like houses where you're really focusing on making sure that your plant has enough light. So I definitely do see this app as like really white and neutral, and then maybe has a bit of green for some areas that are going to be interactive. So our primary color is also going to be our accent color in this case for our mobile app about that. And we're going to start off with a shade of green that's going to be somewhere in the middle. So I do want to start off with some area in here. I'm going to slightly go towards cyan, just because I do kind of associate that kind of darker hue of green with it, and I am going to make it less saturated, a lot less saturated actually. So maybe somewhere around here, that could be a really good starting point for us. Now, one thing that I am gonna do in here is I don't think we're gonna need as much shades of darker colors, so I'm gonna create a couple of lighter ones. This is gonna be our 500 one. And for the 400 one, we're gonna again slowly go into this direction. I definitely do think we're gonna have to have at least like one of them being like this, and maybe one really lighter one like this. Again, so all done by hand, and doesn't mean that it's anywhere near perfect. And I don't want to add too much saturation for the darker one because it won't feel like it's gonna fit in with this kind of minimalist style that we're striving for. One thing that I do want to do on this project is actually use hue as well to kind of signal a little bit of like difference in the shades that we're using. So if we think about the perceived brightness of colors, we have green as usually like the lowest point, like red, green, and blue in our color wheel. So either way that we move, we're gonna move slightly towards peaks. But if we think about the peak of like yellow versus cyan, yellow is brighter. So I am gonna move more towards blue in this case for this darker shade. It's just gonna be like a slight thing, not too much, but I feel like it's gonna work really well in this minimalist type of app. It's not something that you necessarily have to do when you're creating all of the tints and shades for your project, but it is something that I do want to show you is an option. So since we didn't do it with the last color palette that we were making, I want to use it in here. And for the lighter ones, I'm going to go towards yellow. Again, just a subtle, a couple of degrees, but I think it's going to make like a noticeable difference. So I'm really excited about it. Again, the further you are away from the main shade, the more degrees you can kind of go away from. So in here, I'm probably going to use even something like this. Not sure how noticeable it is in the video recording. Again, like use the hex codes that I have in here if you want to double check it on your own screens. And then for the other thing that we need to do, we need to pick some neutral shades. So again, I'm going to go in here, try to move it to 50. I think that's going to work well. We're going to need a couple of these and a couple of lighter shades. I'm going to create another one just for the sake of it. So 3, this is probably going to be the middle one. So if this is white, this is the middle one. 3 lighter, 3 darker shades. This one, I'm just gonna move to like a little bit darker. And since it is darker, I'm gonna increase saturation just a little bit. And here, brightness is probably gonna go down to like 25 maybe. Saturation up to like, just so that you can barely notice it. And here maybe like 10. So really dark, and saturation in here could be darker like this. On the lighter shades, I can do it at like 60, or maybe even a little bit more, and remove a bit of saturation. In here, probably like 85, and bring it to maybe like 1 or 2. I'm gonna try with 2, but I don't want it to be too similar to this one. And then this one is gonna be like 95 or something, and probably just 1 is gonna be enough. Those are the neutral shades. Again, if I wanted to create an error state or something in this app, I would probably think about like lowering it by 120. Again, like using the number that's divisible by 30 is my starting point. I can easily switch it by a couple of degrees if needed, but I think this is going to make it work well with the main shade that we have. And even though this one is not necessarily saturated, this felt too off for me. So I want to saturate it and make it a little bit brighter, and it's going to be more of like trying to get the right feel so that it's going to work well with the app that we have. Yeah, maybe just like 1 darker shade. Again, don't want it to feel too different from this one. And maybe just 1 lighter one that's going to be more like this, so I can inspect this and see 10, 80, like 10, maybe 82. Again, it does feel like it's gonna actually need to be a little bit brighter and a little bit more saturated. Now when those two are together, yeah, I think that's gonna be better. So again, not a strict rule. You have to use your eyes a lot, but that's what design is for, and that's what we are here for, to kind of eyeball it a little bit and then apply it, and apply all of our knowledge that we now know about colors in the actual use cases that we're going to use it for. And in here, I do want to try out the new palette that we created. So I think this is one of the lighter ones. White is still okay. This is one of the mid gray ones. Maybe it's this one, I'm not sure. I'll just use the same one. Or no, not that one in our light color. Honestly, it might be a little bit too much with that light color. Maybe it's even better if it's just white for this type of app. I don't think like that minimalist apps are using shadows too much. So maybe one thing that we can do in here for these elements is actually remove the shadow and maybe use the fill, one of these lighter grays. And I do still see purple in here, so I'm just going to switch that purple to the primary one as well. Yeah. A little bit of a different approach, but I think it works. One other thing is that we could have done is actually, just because we do know that this feels like it's now more indented into a screen, is going here, pick this and actually make it a little bit lighter to like 98, 97, and maybe fully remove the saturation. I think it works in this case for a minimalist app like this one. And yeah, maybe that's better. Again, personal preference, what works better for the context of the project. This one solution is not going to be the same solution that you're going to use in other areas too. So there are pros and cons to everything. One other thing that you can do is maybe like use a stroke to add a little bit more of a divider in here, even though you're not using necessarily shadows. So yeah, I think we created like a different color palette for a different context and a different type of project, and we had differences in the approach that we took because of that. But overall, you can see how cohesive or not they feel and how usable they're going to be in the context of a project. Again, each one of these shades has a particular meaning assigned to them, and if you do that with purpose when you're creating color palettes, you're going to be good to go. And with like 5 to 10 screens, when you have those created and when you've battle tested your color palette that you've created, maybe tweaked it slightly, removed the unnecessary one, added new ones that you didn't expect are going to be needed but were, you're going to be good to go to start off using those styles in all of the other screens that you're going to design further on as you're moving on with the project. So yeah, that's it. That's everything behind creating color palettes. Again, there are a lot of generators you can use. There are plugins in Figma that you can use to kind of speed up this process. But when you're starting out, it's really important that you actually understand why those things are done in the way they are. And I do suggest trying it out yourself. Maybe using pre-made palettes or like generators until you get like confidence in your skills, but after that, like, you're not actually going to be needing them. And if you're going to be abusing those, you're going to be losing on a lot of these like little details that we do when we're creating palettes that are actually going to make your designs stand out versus all of the other ones that are done by designers who don't understand the things that we went over in this course. So yeah, thank you for following along, and see you in the next video.